The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched as far as the eye could see. 12 massive seats formed a circle around a single platform in the center. Each seat held a different alien species, their forms strange and powerful. Some looked like living crystals that sparkled with inner light. Others resembled giant insects with multiple arms and clicking sounds. A few were so alien that human eyes could barely understand what they were looking at. Commander Jake Morrison stood alone on the platform. His blue uniform looked small and simple compared to the grandeur around him. Behind him, 3 other humans waited in silence. Dr. Lisa Hayes held a datapad with shaking hands. Captain Ryan Brooks kept his face calm, but his jaw was tight. Admiral Kate Sullivan stared directly at the alien judges, her eyes hard as steel. The trial had been going on for 3 days. Jake had spoken until his voice was rough. He had shown evidence, made arguments, and begged for understanding. Nothing had worked. The aliens had already made up their minds before the trial even started. "The charges are clear," said the lead Zephyrian, its crystal body flashing with cold light. "Humanity has spread too fast across the galaxy. You have taken worlds without asking permission. You have built weapons that threaten the peace we have kept for thousands of years." Jake stepped forward. "We came in peace. We offered to share our knowledge. We helped fight the pirates in the Outer Rim. We saved the Korath colony on Vega Prime when the plague hit. How is that threatening?" A buzz filled the air as the insect-like Korath spoke through their hive mind. "You helped us, yes. But you also built quantum weapons. These weapons can destroy entire star systems. No single species should have such power. We built them to protect everyone," Jake said, his voice rising. "There are things out there in the dark between galaxies. We have seen the signs. Energy readings that don't match anything we know. Ships that appear and disappear without explanation. Something is coming, and when it arrives, we will need every weapon we can get." The aliens made sounds that might have been laughter. The Etherians, beings of pure energy, pulsed with what seemed like amusement. "Humans and their fears," one of them said in a voice like singing wind. "You see enemies everywhere. You cannot accept that the galaxy is at peace." Dr. Lisa Hayes stepped forward. "May I speak?" The Zephyrian leader nodded. "I am Dr. Lisa Hayes, Earth's chief scientist. For the past 10 years, I have been studying deep space readings. We have detected massive energy signatures moving toward our galaxy. These signatures are unlike anything in our databases. They are not natural phenomena. They are artificial. They are coming from something that builds on a scale we can barely imagine." She held up her datapad. "I have the readings here. The evidence is clear. Something is heading toward us from the void between galaxies. It will arrive within the next 5 years. When it does, every species in this galaxy will need to work together to survive." The crystal beings flickered with annoyed light. "We have heard these claims before. Your species has been making these warnings for 2 years. Our best scientists have examined your data. They found nothing that proves any threat exists." "Because you refuse to look properly," Lisa said, her voice sharp. "You are so convinced that nothing can threaten your perfect order that you ignore the evidence right in front of you." The Korath buzzed angrily. "Enough. We have heard your arguments. We have seen your evidence. We do not believe your claims about some great threat. What we do believe is that humanity has become too dangerous to remain free in the galaxy." Jake felt his heart sink. He had known this moment would come, but he had hoped he could change their minds. "Please, just listen. To us, we are not your enemies. We want to help protect everyone by building weapons that can crack planets." The Etherian's voice was cold now. "By spreading across the galaxy like a virus? By refusing to follow the laws that have kept peace for millennia? "We followed your laws," Captain Ryan Brooks said suddenly. "We applied for membership in the Council. We sent ambassadors. We tried to work within your system. But every time we asked for help or tried to warn you about the danger, you told us to wait. You told us to be patient. You told us that young species needed to learn their place." The hall fell silent. The weight of unspoken truths hung in the air. The Zephyrian leader's crystal body flared bright. "The decision has been made. Humanity will be exiled from the galaxy. You have 30 days to gather all your people from every world and return to your home system. After that, a barrier will be placed around your star system. You will remain there until you have learned to control your violent nature." Jake felt. The words hit him like a physical blow. "You are making a terrible mistake. When the danger comes, you will need us. We are stronger together than apart. We survived for millions of years before humans appeared," the Korith said. "We will survive long after you are gone." Dr. Lisa Hayes stepped forward one last time. Her voice was calm, but carried a weight that made even the aliens pause. "We came in peace. We offered our knowledge. We warned you of what lies in the void beyond. When the darkness comes, remember that you chose to face it alone. The trial was over." Security drones surrounded the humans and escorted them from the hall. As they walked through the corridors, Jake could hear the aliens already celebrating their victory. They thought they had solved their human problem. 3 weeks later, Captain Ryan Brooks stood on the bridge of the evacuation ship, New Hope. Below him, the planet of Kepler 442b was being abandoned. Humans had lived there for 15 years, building cities and farms, making it a home. Now they were leaving it all behind. "How many ships do we have left to evacuate?" he asked his second officer. 47 more, sir. The last group should be off-world in 6 hours." Ryan nodded. Across the galaxy, the same scene was playing out on dozens of worlds. Millions of humans were giving up their lives to return to Earth. Some had been born on distant planets and had never seen their homeworld. Others had spent decades building new communities. All of it was being abandoned. The final ship left human space just as the barrier activated. Jake Morrison, now back on Earth, watched from the observation deck of Luna Station as space itself seemed to shimmer. The energy field that surrounded the Sol system was invisible to the naked eye, but every human could feel it. They were trapped, cut off from the galaxy they had tried to help. But Jake was not thinking about the barrier. He was thinking about Dr. Hayes' words about the darkness beyond. Somewhere out there, moving through the void between galaxies, something was coming. The aliens had 5 years to prepare, maybe less, and they would face it without humanity's help, just as they had chosen. 3 years had passed since the barrier went up around the Sol system. The galaxy beyond was quiet, peaceful even. The Galactic Council had returned to its normal routines. Trade flowed between worlds. Diplomatic meetings happened on schedule. The species that had once worried about human expansion now enjoyed the calm that came with air. Absenced out on the crystal world of Zephyria Prime, the council leaders met in their monthly session. The chamber was filled with the soft music of crystal formations growing and shifting. The mood was relaxed, almost cheerful. "The galaxy has never been more stable," said High Counselor Veltar, his crystal body pulsing with satisfied light. "Crime rates are down. Border disputes have decreased by 60%. The removal of the human element has brought us the peace we always hoped for." The Korith representative, a massive insect-like being with 6 arms, clicked its approval. "Our hive mind analysis shows harmony across all monitored sectors." The humans' aggressive expansion was indeed the primary source of instability. In the outer reaches of the galaxy, ancient monitoring stations continued their endless watch. These stations had been built millions of years ago by the first galactic civilization. They sent automatic signals back to the Council reporting on the health of space itself. For countless generations, these signals had been steady and predictable. But in the past few months, some of the signals had begun to change. Station 7741, located at the very edge of the galaxy, had started sending readings that made no sense. The energy levels were wrong. The gravitational measurements were impossible. The quantum field readings suggested that space itself was being altered. Dr. Kax-Jin, a young Zephyrian scientist, studied these readings with growing concern. He had requested permission to send a research team to investigate Station 7741. The request had been denied. The Council felt that sending ships to the galaxy's edge was unnecessary and expensive. These readings must be equipment errors, his supervisor had told him. The stations are old. Sometimes they malfunction. There is no need to worry about impossible readings from the edge of nowhere. But the readings kept coming. Each day, they became more strange. Station 7741 was now reporting energy signatures that were larger than entire star systems. The quantum field readings suggested that something was moving through space in ways that should not be possible. Then, one day, Station 7741 went silent. Dr. Kax-Jin reported the loss to his supervisors. They filed the report and moved on to other matters. One lost station out of thousands was not worth investigating. The galaxy was vast, and equipment failures were common. Behind the Sol System barrier, humanity was not celebrating peace. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the command center of the newly built Luna complex, watching displays that showed the progress of a dozen different projects. The barrier had not stopped humanity from growing and changing. If anything, it had focused their efforts in ways that surprised even them. "Report on Project Nexus," she said to Dr. Amy Foster, who had become the lead researcher on humanity's most ambitious program. "We have successfully tested dimensional phase technology on 17 different ship designs," Amy said, her voice tired but excited. "The breakthrough came when we realized that the barrier itself was giving us a unique opportunity to study multidimensional physics. We can now build ships that exist in multiple dimensions at the same time." Kate nodded. "And the quantum weapons program?" "Dr. Cooper's team has made incredible progress. The weapons are not just more powerful than before. They can now affect the basic structure of space-time itself. We can disrupt dimensional barriers, create localized gravitational fields, and even temporarily stop time in small areas." "Good. What about the Collective Consciousness Project?" Amy's expression grew more serious. "That one is still difficult. Tony Parker's team has found a way to link human minds without destroying individual personality. We can share thoughts, coordinate actions, and process information as a group while still remaining ourselves. But the technology is new, and we are still learning how to use it safely." Kate looked at the displays around her. 3 years ago, humanity had been scattered across dozens of worlds, growing slowly and naturally. Now they were concentrated in one system, forced to work together in ways they never had before. The result was a burst of technological advancement that none of them had expected. "Admiral," said Commander Jake Morrison, entering the command center, "we have received another transmission." Kate turned to him. "From the Council?" "No, from our monitoring network." Before the exile, Jake had set up a secret network of human agents and sympathizers throughout the galaxy. These people continued to send information back to Earth using hidden communication methods that the Council had never discovered. The messages were few and far between, but they provided a window into what was happening beyond the barrier. "What is it this time?" Kate asked. Jake's face was grim. 3 more monitoring stations have gone silent, all of them on the outer edge of the galaxy. The Zephyrians are not investigating. They think it is just equipment failure. Amy looked up from her datapad. That makes 7 stations in the past month, all of them in the same general area. The area where Dr. Hayes predicted the threat would come from, Kate said quietly. The 3 of them stood in silence for a moment. They all knew what the loss of the monitoring stations meant. The threat that Lisa Hayes had warned about was getting closer. The aliens had ignored the warnings, and now they were ignoring the evidence. How much longer do we have? Kate asked. Based on our calculations. Maybe 2 years, Amy replied. Maybe less if it is moving faster than we thought. Jake rubbed his tired eyes. We need to warn them again? They will not listen, Kate said. They have made it clear that they do not want to hear from us. Then we prepare for what is coming, Amy said, with or without their help. On the far side of the galaxy, Dr. Kax-Jin was working late in his laboratory. The official position was that the lost monitoring stations were due to equipment failure. But Kax-Jin had access to the full database of station readings, and he could see patterns that others had missed. The stations had not failed randomly. They had gone silent in a specific order, moving from the outer edge toward the center of the galaxy. Whatever was causing the failures was approaching in a deliberate pattern. He pulled up the last readings from Vec, station 7741. The energy signatures were massive, but they were also familiar in a strange way. He had seen similar patterns before, but he could not remember where. Then it came to him. The patterns matched the readings that the humans had shown to the Council 3 years ago. The readings that had been dismissed as false evidence of a non-existent threat. Kax-Jin felt his crystal body go cold. If the humans had been right, if something was indeed approaching from the void between galaxies, then the loss of the monitoring stations was not equipment failure. It was the first sign of an invasion. He tried to access the human data files, but they had been sealed after the exile. Only the highest levels of the Council could review them now. He submitted a request to examine the files, explaining his concerns about the connection between the lost stations and the human warnings. The request was denied without explanation. Dr. Kax-Jin stared at the denial message on his screen. Around him, the galaxy continued its peaceful existence. Trade ships moved between worlds. Diplomatic meetings continued on schedule. The Council prepared for another routine session. But in the darkness beyond the galaxy's edge, something was moving. Something that consumed monitoring stations, like a predator consuming prey. Something that the humans had tried to warn them about, and now they would face it alone, just as they had chosen. Back in the Sol system, humanity prepared for a war that the rest of the galaxy did not even know was coming. They had been exiled for being too dangerous, too advanced, too willing to build weapons that could threaten the peace. Soon, the galaxy would learn why those weapons had been necessary. The first sign of the invasion was not ships or weapons. It was the silence. The Korath hive mind operated across 17 different star systems, with billions of individual minds connected as one. For thousands of years, the constant buzz of their mental network had been as reliable as the rising of suns. Then, without warning, 3 entire systems went quiet. Queen Mind Velkara felt the silence like a physical wound. One moment, the minds of her children in the outer colonies were there, sending their thoughts and experiences through the network. The next moment, there was nothing. Not death, not fear, not even pain. Just emptiness, as if those systems had never existed at all. Send scout ships to the outer colonies, she commanded her warrior drones. Find out what has happened to our people. The scout ships launched immediately, their insect-like forms cutting through space toward the silent systems. They would find nothing. The systems were gone, not destroyed, but simply removed from existence. Where planets had once orbited their stars, there was now only empty space. Where stars had once burned, there was only void. On Zephyria Prime, high, Counselor Veltar received the first reports with confusion rather than alarm. The crystal beings had lived for millions of years, and they had seen many strange things. But they had never seen anything like this. "You are saying the systems are gone?" he asked the Korath messenger. "Not destroyed, but gone?" The insect being clicked its mandibles in distress. "Gone, as if they never existed. Our scouts found no debris, no radiation, no sign that anything had ever been there. The space is empty, but it is wrong. It feels wrong." Veltar's crystal body dimmed with thought. Space cannot be wrong. Space simply is. Your people must have made an error in their navigation. But even as he spoke, more reports were coming in. The Etherians had lost contact with their energy research stations in the Rim sectors. The Vorthan Empire reported that an entire fleet had vanished while investigating strange readings near the galactic edge. Most disturbing of all, the ancient monitoring stations were going dark by the dozens. Dr. Kaxchin sat in his laboratory, surrounded by data that painted a picture of impossible horror. The lost systems formed a clear pattern, spreading inward from the galactic edge like infection. Whatever was causing the disappearances was not random. It was systematic, deliberate, and unstoppable. He had tried to warn his superiors, but they continued to dismiss his concerns. The Council was too invested in their belief that the galaxy was safe to consider the possibility that something from outside could threaten them. But the evidence was overwhelming. The energy readings that the humans had shown 3 years ago matched perfectly with the signatures being detected just before each system vanished. The humans had been right about everything. The first actual sighting came from a Zephyrian patrol ship near the mid-rim. Captain Torvin was conducting a routine survey when his instruments detected something that should not have been possible. Space itself was moving. "Navigation. Confirm our position," he ordered. "Position confirmed, sir. We are in the Helix sector, Grid 7 Alpha." "Then explain why the stars are moving." The bridge crew gathered around the main display. In the distance, a section of space roughly the size of a solar system was ... shifting. Stars were bending around it, their light twisted into impossible patterns. A void between stars was rippling like water. "It is beautiful," whispered his science officer. Then they saw what was causing the distortion. Something was emerging from the twisted space, something that hurt to look at directly. It was not a ship in any sense that they understood. It was a presence, a manifestation of hunger given form. It moved through space like a living thing, and everything it touched simply ceased to exist. The Zephyrian patrol ship tried to run, but space was no longer behaving normally. Their engines fired, but instead of moving forward, they found themselves pulled backward toward the approaching entity. The last transmission from Captain Torvin was barely coherent. "It is eating space itself. It is eating reality. May this crystal gods preserve us all." The ship vanished along with the system it had been protecting. Within hours, the reports were flooding in from across the galaxy. The entities were not ships or weapons or even life forms as the galaxy understood. They were something else, something that existed partially outside of normal spacetime. They consumed matter and energy, converting everything they touched into more of themselves. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. For the first time in centuries, every member species was represented. The great hall buzzed with fear and confusion as reports came in from the front lines. "The entities appear to be immune to conventional weapons," reported General Thane of the Vorthan Empire. "We have thrown everything we have at them. Energy weapons, kinetic bombardment, even nuclear devices. Nothing affects them. They absorb the energy and become stronger." The Etherian representative pulsed with distress. "They are not entirely in our dimension. Our energy attacks pass through them like they are not there. But they can affect our reality. They can consume our worlds." High Counselor Veltar's crystal form flickered with desperate light. "How many systems have we lost?" 47 confirmed, replied the Korath Queen Mind. "But the real number is probably much higher. Many outer systems have simply stopped transmitting. We have no way to know if they are still there." The hall fell silent. 47 systems, billions of lives. "Gone. We need to understand what we are fighting," said Dr. Cax-Jin, who had been called to advise the council. "These entities match the energy signatures that the humans detected 3 years ago. They tried to warn us about this exact threat." A wave of uncomfortable silence passed through the assembly. The humans had been right. The species they had exiled for being too dangerous had been trying to protect them from something infinitely more dangerous. The humans also developed weapons, designed to fight extra-dimensional threats, Cax-Jin continued. Their quantum weapons technology might be the only thing that can hurt these entities. Veltar's crystal body flared with anger. "The humans are confined behind their barrier. They cannot help us even if they wanted to." "But we could ask them," suggested the Etherian representative. "We could request their assistance." The idea hung in the air like a poison. The proud species of the Galactic Council, who had ruled the galaxy for millennia, would have to beg for help from the primitives they had exiled. "Never," said the Korath Queen Mind. "We do not need human help. We will find another way." But even as she spoke, more reports were coming in. The entities were accelerating their advance. Instead of consuming systems one at a time, they were now attacking multiple targets simultaneously. The galaxy's defenses were crumbling dot in the soul system. Behind the barrier that had once been a prison, humanity watched the invasion unfold. Their secret monitoring network brought them constant updates on the galaxy's desperate situation. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the command center, reading the latest reports. "The Korath have lost their home system," she said to the assembled officers. "The Vorthan Empire is evacuating their core worlds. The Zephyrians are falling back to their inner colonies." Dr. Amy Foster looked up from her calculations. "At this rate, they have maybe 6 months before the entities reach the major population centers. After that, complete galactic collapse within a year. And they still have not asked for our help," added Commander Jake Morrison. Kate nodded grimly. "They would rather die than admit they were wrong about us." "Maybe they will change their minds when the entities get closer," suggested Tony Parker. "Maybe," Kate replied. "But we cannot wait for them to ask. We need to be ready to act when they are seen. Time comes," she turned to address the full command staff. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have spent 3 years preparing for this moment. Our ships are ready. Our weapons are tested. Our people are trained. The galaxy that exiled us is about to face its darkest hour. When that hour comes, we will be ready to step out of the shadows and show them what humanity is truly capable of." The lights in the command center dimmed as the display showed the current state of the galaxy. Red zones marked the areas already consumed by the entities. Yellow zones showed systems under immediate threat. Green zones, representing safe areas, were shrinking by the hour. But there was one area that the display did not show. Behind its barrier, the Sol system remained hidden from both the entities and the rest of the galaxy. Humanity had been exiled for being too dangerous, too advanced, too willing to build weapons that could threaten the peace. Now, as the galaxy burned, that danger was about to become salvation. The question was whether the galaxy would swallow its pride in time to accept it. The message arrived on a priority channel that had not been used in 3 years. It was encrypted with codes that only the highest levels of the Galactic Council possessed. The transmission was brief, barely 30 seconds long, but it carried the weight of desperation. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the command center of Luna Complex, watching the decoded message play on the main screen. The holographic image showed High Counselor Veltar, his crystal form flickering with erratic light patterns that indicated extreme stress. To the leadership of humanity, the message began, we acknowledge that errors were made in our previous interactions. The threat you warned us about has proven to be real. We request immediate assistance in dealing with this crisis. Time is running out. The message ended abruptly. No apology, no admission of complete failure, just a simple request for help from the species they had exiled 3 years ago. Kate turned to face the assembled leadership of Earth. President Claire Adams sat at the head of the table, her face showing the strain of the past few weeks. Around her were the key figures who would decide humanity's response. General Nick Stone, Dr. Amy Foster, Commander Jake Morrison, and Dr. Lisa Hayes, now elderly but still sharp. Well, President Adams said quietly, they finally asked. Barely, replied General Stone. That was not an apology. That was not even a real request. That was a demand disguised as a plea. Dr. Foster pulled up a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. The situation is worse than they are letting on. Based on our intelligence, they have lost over 60% of their outer systems. The entities are moving faster now, consuming multiple systems simultaneously. How long do they have? Asked President Adams. Maybe 2 months before the entities reach the core worlds, Foster replied. After that, total collapse within weeks. Commander Morrison leaned forward. We have the capability to help them. Our ships can phase through dimensions, which means we can hit the entities in ways they cannot. Our quantum weapons can disrupt their dimensional nature. We might be the only force in the galaxy that can stop them. The question is whether we should, said General Stone. They exiled us. They called us dangerous. They refused to listen to our warnings. Now they want us to risk human lives to save them. Dr. Hayes spoke for the first time. May I remind everyone that we are talking about the extinction of all life in the galaxy? This is not about pride or revenge. This is about survival. Our survival was never their concern, Stone replied. Why should their survival be ours? The room fell silent. The moral weight of the decision pressed down on everyone present. Outside the conference room, millions of humans waited to learn whether they would risk everything to save the galaxy that had rejected them. President Adams looked around the table. I want to hear from everyone. Dr. Foster, what would a military intervention look like? Amy Foster activated a series of displays showing fleet compositions and battle plans. We have been preparing for this scenario for 3 years. We have 47 dimensional phase ships, each one more advanced than anything the galaxy has ever seen. We have quantum weapons that can disrupt the entity's dimensional nature. We have the collective consciousness protocol that allows our fleets to operate as a single mind while maintaining individual creativity. Casualties? Asked Adams. Unknown. We have never fought these entities directly. Our simulations suggest we can hurt them, but we do not know how they will respond to a real threat. General Stone activated his own display. From a strategic perspective, we have several advantages. The entities do not know we exist. They have never encountered our technology. We can strike from multiple dimensions simultaneously. But once we reveal ourselves, we become targets. They will adapt to our tactics. What about the aliens? Asked Adams. Can we work with them? Commander Morrison shook his head. Their technology is completely ineffective against the entities. Their ships cannot phase through dimensions. Their weapons cannot hurt extra-dimensional beings. If we intervene, we will be fighting alone. Not alone, said Dr. Hayes. We will be fighting for everyone. That is what humans do. The debate continued for hours. Arguments were made on both sides. Some pointed out that humanity had tried to warn the galaxy and been ignored. Others argued that the moral choice was clear, regardless of past treatment. Finally, President Adams called for a vote. All in favor of military intervention? The hands went up slowly. Dr. Hayes first, then Commander Morrison, then Dr. Foster. President Adams raised her own hand. General Stone hesitated, then raised his hand as well. Unanimous, Adams said. We will intervene, but we do it on our terms. The next few days saw frantic activity throughout the Sol system. The dimensional phase ships were prepared for combat. Quantum weapons were loaded and tested. The collective consciousness protocol was activated, linking human minds across the fleet while preserving individual identity. Captain Ryan Brooks stood on the bridge of the flagship Terra's Hope, watching the final preparations. His ship was the most advanced vessel humanity had ever built, capable of existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Around him, his crew made final checks on systems that the rest of the galaxy did not even know were possible. "Captain," said his communications officer, "we are receiving a transmission from the Council." "Put it through." The main screen showed High Counselor Veltar again, but this time he was not alone. Representatives from all the surviving species were visible in the background. The crystal being's form was dimmer than before, his light patterns showing exhaustion and desperation. "Humanity, we need to know your intentions. Are you going to help us or not?" Ryan looked at his crew, then back at the screen. "We are coming, but understand this. We are not coming to serve the Council. We are not coming to follow your orders. We are coming to save the galaxy, and we will do it our way." The transmission ended before the aliens could respond. 3 hours later, the barrier around the Sol system began to fluctuate. For 3 years, it had been an impenetrable wall, keeping humanity trapped inside their home system. Now, for the first time since the exile, the barrier was opening. The first ship to emerge was not a warship, but a small scout vessel. It phased through the barrier like it was not there, its dimensional technology allowing it to bypass the energy field completely. Behind it, the main fleet began to emerge. The ships that came out of the Sol system were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They moved in ways that defied physics, appearing and disappearing as they shifted between dimensions. Their hulls were smooth and dark, covered in patterns that seemed to shift and flow like living things. Dr. Sam Cooper, Earth xenobiologist, stood on the bridge of the research vessel, Darwin's Light. His job was to study the entities and find their weaknesses. He had spent 3 years preparing for this moment, analyzing every scrap of data about the extra-dimensional invaders. "Captain," he said to his commanding officer, "we are detecting massive energy signatures in the Korath home system. The entities are there in force." "That is where we start," replied Captain Brooks over the fleet communication network. "All ships, prepare for dimensional phase." The human fleet vanished from normal space, shifting into the dimensional realm where the entities partially existed. They moved through folded space, covering vast distances in moments. The galaxy they emerged into was very different from the one they had left 3 years ago. Whole systems were gone, replaced by empty void. The stars themselves seemed dimmer, as if the entities were draining light from the universe. But for the first time since the invasion began, the entities were about to face an enemy that could fight them on their own terms. As the human fleet approached the Korath home system, they found it under siege. Massive entities, each the size of a moon, were slowly consuming the planets. The Korath defense fleet was there, but their weapons were useless. They could only watch as their worlds were devoured. And humanity arrived. The first sign of their presence was not ships or weapons, but impossible geometry. Space itself began to twist and fold as the human fleet emerged from multiple dimensions. At once, the entities, for the first time since their arrival, encountered something they had never seen before: The battle was about to begin, and the galaxy was about to learn what humanity had become during their 3 years of exile. The battle for the Korth home system began with silence. The massive entities that had been consuming the planets suddenly stopped. For the first time since their arrival in the galaxy, they had encountered something that registered as a threat. The human fleet materialized around them, ships appearing from dimensions that should not exist. Captain Ryan Brooks stood on the bridge of Terra's Hope, watching the tactical display. The entities were enormous, each one the size of a small moon. They moved through space like living things, their forms constantly shifting and changing. But now they were motionless, as if studying the new arrivals. "All ships, this is Terra's Hope," Ryan said into his communicator. "Begin phase assault pattern Alpha. Target the largest entity first." The human fleet moved like a single organism. Ships appeared and disappeared, striking from multiple dimensions simultaneously. The quantum weapons they fired were not beams of energy or physical projectiles. They were disruptions in the fabric of space-time itself, designed to hurt beings that existed partially outside normal reality. The first shots hit the largest entity dead center. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the creature began to scream, but it was not a sound that could be heard with ears. It was a vibration that passed through dimensions, a cry of pain and confusion from something that had never experienced either. The entity's form began to flicker and waver, its dimensional nature disrupted by the quantum weapons. Queen Mind Velkara felt the change immediately. The oppressive presence that had been crushing her hive mind began to weaken. For the first time in weeks, she could think clearly. "Who are these ships?" she asked her surviving warriors. "What species has technology like this?" The answer came from an unexpected source. A human voice, speaking directly into her mind through the collective consciousness protocol. "We are humanity," the voice said. "We have come to help." The battle raged across multiple dimensions. The entities, faced with their first real opposition, began to adapt. They tried to phase into dimensions where the human ships could not follow. But humanity had spent 3 years preparing for exactly this scenario. Their ships shifted and moved, following the entities wherever they tried to hide. Dr. Sam Cooper watched the battle from his research station, collecting data on the entities' behavior. "They are learning," he reported to the fleet. "They are trying to match our dimensional phase technology. But they are not as flexible as we are. They exist in fixed dimensional states. We can move between them." The advantage was clear. The entities were powerful, but they were not creative. They had conquered thousands of galaxies using the same basic approach. Humanity was the first species they had encountered that could think in truly 3-dimensional terms. General Nick Stone coordinated the battle from the command ship Earth's Fury. His tactical display showed the entire conflict across multiple dimensions. "Focus fire on the entity near the 3rd planet," he ordered. "It is trying to complete its consumption pattern." The human fleet converged on the designated target. Ships appeared from above and below, from left and right, from dimensions that had no names. The entity found itself surrounded by enemies it could not fully perceive or understand. The quantum weapons fired in perfect synchronization. The entity's form began to collapse, its dimensional nature unraveling under the coordinated assault. With a final, reality-shaking scream, it vanished completely. The remaining entities in the system reacted with something that might have been fear. They began to retreat, trying to phase back into the void between dimensions. But the human fleet was ready for this too. "Deploy the dimensional net," ordered Admiral Kate Sullivan from her flagship. "Do not let them escape." The human ships arranged themselves in a complex pattern, their combined field generators creating a barrier that sealed off the dimensional pathways. The entities were trapped, unable to retreat to their home dimension. One by one, they were destroyed. The battle lasted only 3 hours, but it was the first victory the galaxy had seen since the invasion began. As the last entity fell, the surviving Korath ships cautiously approached the human fleet. Queen Mind Valkara's voice echoed across the communication channels. "Humanity, we thank you. You have saved our people." Captain Brooks responded, his voice calm and professional. "We are not finished yet. This was just one system. There are entities throughout the galaxy. We need to find their source and stop them permanently." The news of humanity's victory spread quickly through the galaxy. The species that had once feared human expansion now celebrated their return. But the celebration was premature. The battle for the Korath system was just the beginning. Over the following weeks, the human fleet appeared wherever the entities struck. They moved like ghosts through the galaxy, arriving without warning to rescue systems that had been written off as lost. The Zephyrians watched in amazement as human ships materialized around their crystal worlds, driving off entities that had seemed unstoppable. The Etherians, beings of pure energy, found themselves protected by the very species they had helped exile. The Vorthan Empire, reduced to a handful of surviving ships, watched as humanity restored their lost colonies by destroying the entities that had consumed them. But the real test came when Dr. Amy Foster made a crucial discovery. Using data collected from the battles, she had traced the entities back to their source. "They are not just random invaders," she explained to the fleet commanders. "They are parts of a single massive organism. There is a central hub, a nexus point where they all connect. It is located at the galactic core." The mission to destroy the nexus required every ship in the human fleet. The entities had learned from their defeats and were now adapting their tactics. They moved in coordinated groups, tried to ambush human ships, and had even begun to copy some human technologies. Commander Jake Morrison led the assault on the galactic core. The battle was unlike anything in recorded history. Ships fought across multiple dimensions, while reality itself twisted and warped around them. The Nexus was not just a location, but a living thing, a vast intelligence that had been consuming galaxies for millions of years. The final assault required humanity to use their most dangerous weapon, the collective consciousness protocol, at full power. Every human in the fleet linked their minds together, creating a single unified intelligence that could think and act faster than any individual. The Nexus had never encountered anything like it. It was used to fighting species that thought in linear terms. Humanity thought in chaos, in creativity, in ways that the ancient intelligence could not predict or counter. The quantum weapons that destroyed the Nexus were not just weapons of war. They were expressions of human will, concentrated into beams of pure creative force. The Nexus, faced with this completely alien form of intelligence, simply could not adapt fast enough. When the Nexus died, every entity in the galaxy died with it. The invasion was over. The aftermath was swift and decisive. The Galactic Council, what remained of it, met in emergency session. The representatives of the surviving species faced a new reality. Humanity had not just saved the galaxy, they had proven themselves to be the most advanced civilization in known space. President Claire Adams addressed the council from the bridge of Terra's Hope. Her words were broadcast across the galaxy, reaching every surviving world. 3 years ago, you exiled us because you feared our potential. You called us dangerous. You said we were too advanced, too willing to build weapons that could threaten your peace. You were right to fear us. But you were wrong about why. She paused, looking directly at the assembled alien leaders. We are not dangerous because we build weapons. We are dangerous because we refuse to give up. We are dangerous because we protect those who cannot protect themselves. We are dangerous because when the darkness comes, we fight back. The council chamber was silent. The species that had once ruled the galaxy now understood that they were no longer in charge. We warned you about the threat from beyond the galaxy. You ignored us. We offered to help you prepare. You exiled us instead. But when the time came, we saved you anyway. Not because you deserved it, but because it was the right thing to do. High Counselor Veltar's crystal form flickered with shame. Humanity, we were wrong. We ask for your forgiveness. You do not need our forgiveness, Adams replied. You need our protection. The galaxy is a dangerous place. There are other threats out there, other dangers waiting beyond the void. You cannot face them alone. The new order was established quickly. The Galactic Council was reformed with humanity as its leading member. The species that had once feared human expansion now begged for human protection. The barriers between worlds came down, replaced by human-built defense networks. But the most important change was not political. It was philosophical. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the species you fear the most is the one you need the most. Humanity had been exiled for being too dangerous, too advanced, too willing to build weapons that could threaten the peace dot in the end. That danger had been the galaxy's salvation. The judgment had been rendered. Humanity stood not as conquerors, but as guardians, protecting the very species that had once cast them out. The galaxy was safe, and it would remain safe as long as humanity watched over it. The species that had been exiled for being too dangerous had become the galaxy.